This process of bhakti, devotional service to Krishna, Vyāsadeva Purāṇa, relieves one from the reactions of all activities. It's the superior energy. The spiritual energy is the superior energy. Whatever sinful reactions may be waiting because of activities, material activities that were performed, then by engaging in devotional service, material energy has no jurisdiction. Like the sun. The power of the sun is so great that it's beyond the reach of small little human beings who Since Maharaj Parikshit was a great devotee, the answers of his guru, Sukadeva Goswami, concerning Karmakanda and Jnanakanda could not satisfy him. Therefore, Sukadeva Goswami, knowing very well the heart of his disciple, explained transcendental bliss of devotional service. The word kechit, which is used in this verse, means a few people, but not all. Not everyone can become Krishna conscious. As Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatamapi siddhanam kaschim mam veti tattvataha. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Practically no one understands Krishna as he is. For Krishna cannot be understood through pious activities or attainment of the most elevated speculative knowledge. Actually, the highest knowledge consists of understanding Krishna. Unintelligent men who do not understand Krishna are grossly puffed up, thinking they're liberated, or have themselves become Krishna or Narayan. This is ignorance. Yeah, this is what's being discussed in this section, how atonement or pious activities and speculative knowledge don't get there. They have their shortcomings. They miss the mark. It's only by devotional service that one can actually understand Krishna. Because obviously the understanding isn't just with the mind. The understanding is from the heart. It's revealed knowledge, that type of understanding. To indicate the purity of bhakti, devotional service, Srila Rupa Goswami says in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Anyabalasita sunyam jnana karma dhyanavritam anakulnena krishnanu silanam bhaktir uttamam. One should render transcendental, loving service to the Supreme Lord, Krishna, favorably, without desire for material profit or gain, through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. See, there it is again. That is called pure devotional service. Srila Rupa Goswami further explains that bhakti, or kleshagni subhadra, which means if one takes to devotional service, all kinds of unnecessary labor, material distress cease entirely, one receives all good fortune. Bhakti is so powerful that it is also said to be moksha lagutakrit. In other words, it minimizes the importance of liberation. Okay, so bhakti is the topmost. Nothing can even compare to bhakti. Non-devotees must undergo material hardships because they're prone to commit sinful fruitive activities. A living entity cannot remain inactive even for a moment. Even when we're sleeping, the mind is going on and on and on, dreaming this, dreaming that. Cannot remain inactive. So we have to find that platform of activity that doesn't entangle us in the cycle of birth and death in the material world. That doesn't entangle us further into identifying with the temporary, gross and subtle material mind and body. And that's not done through atonement and trying to perform pious activities. And it's not done through speculative knowledge. It can only be done through bhakti or devotional activities, because that is activity on the platform of transcendence. That's activity in serving the Supreme Spirit, Supreme Personality of Godhead, soul of all souls. And so it has nothing to do with the material jurisdiction or the material nature or the material body or birth or death or old age or disease or Marchaloka or any of the lokas, material lokas. The desire to commit sinful actions continues in the heart due to ignorance. These sinful actions are divided into three categories: patika, mahapatika, and atipatika, and also into two divisions: prabhabda and prarabdha. Prarabdha refers to sinful reactions from which one is suffering at the present. Aprarabdha refers to sources of potential suffering. When the seeds, bija, of sinful reactions have not yet fructified, the reactions are called aprarabdha. These seeds of sinful action are unseen because they are unlimited, and no one can trace when they were first planted. Oh my goodness. Because of prarabdha, sinful reactions that have already fructified, one is seen to have taken birth in a low family or to be suffering from other miseries. Okay, so what we're experiencing now, type of body we have, and the things that we're having to go through, are prarabdha. These are the seeds of sinful activities, the reactions to sinful activities that have now fructified. And we are tasting the fruit of this fructification, prarabdha. But as we continue on, there are other aprarabdha, many, many seeds. Here Prabhupada says unlimited reactions waiting. Unlimited reactions waiting. They just haven't germinated yet. But the seeds are all there. All the seeds are there. So, there's no time like the present. Take shelter of devotional service. When one takes to devotional service, however, all phases of sinful life, including prarabdha, aprarabdha, and bija, are vanquished. This is the power of devotional service. There's no other way to get rid of this stuff. This is the super cleanser. When one takes to devotional service, they're vanquished. In Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna tells Uddhava, "My dear Uddhava, devotional service in relationship with me is like a blazing fire that can burn to ashes all the fuel of sinful activities applied to it." So offering into the fire, this is the actual sacrificial fire, is the devotional service. And there are different prescriptions for how that sacrificial fire manifests in the different yugas. In some yugas it manifests through meditation and austerity. That's the Satya Yuga. And this fire of devotional service manifests in Treta Yuga as an actual sacrificial fire with ghee and huge amounts of wealth being consumed in performing these sacrificial offerings. And in the Dwapara Yuga is worshipping the deity primarily. And this is how the devotional platform, this is the prescription for engaging in devotional service. And in the Kali Yuga is primarily the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. And other practices can be supportive. Meditation and austerity can help to support the chanting of the holy name, or having large festivals and doing the best the devotees can do to perform these sacrificial ceremonies, initiation and different wedding ceremonies, installation ceremonies, and on festival days, different sacrifices performed, bathing ceremonies for the deities. And then also the deity worship is there, and it all helps. All of these activities help. But the actual prescription for Kali Yuga, the one that is recommended, because these other activities are very difficult to perform in the Kali Yuga. Who can sit still long enough to meditate? In Satya Yuga, they meditated for thousands, tens of thousands of years. They had lifespan 100,000 years. They would sit for 50,000 years and meditate. People today, they'll go for 1 hour to some yoga club. So, to actually perform the austerities and the meditation, very difficult in Kali Yuga. Sitting quietly and an airplane comes over, or the doorbell rings, or chemtrails. You even go to the forest, there's chemtrails. So, or the forests are contaminated. How are you going to go to the forest? There's rivers have industrial waste flowing in them. So there's only teeny tiny remnants of this type of practice available, hardly available at all. And then for performing the sacrifices, huge amounts of ghee are required, and gold and silver and precious stones, and all these things are necessary for these yagnas, fire sacrifices, like they were performed in Treta Yuga. So who's got that? Who has that? Just how are you even going to get the huge amounts of ghee? I mean, the situation with the cows is horrible, just abhorrent, horrible. So, and then for worshipping the deity, that can be done as best as possible. But again, it requires a lot of facility. And in the Kali Yuga, it's very difficult to get people to even come to the temple. At least in the Western countries, it's difficult to get them to even come to a temple. Or a church or a mosque even. Tendency is just go shopping and go for some entertainment and drink some intoxication, whatever else people perform for recreation. So the best thing for everyone, as recommended by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is chanting of the holy names. Congregational chanting, Sankirtan, and to be performed in public as much as possible. So this is the prescription for devotional service, especially the hearing and chanting, especially in Kali Yuga. And this devotional service vanquishes the reactions of sinful life And Kapiladev, in his instructions to his mother, explains this. Devahuti said, "My dear Lord, even if a person born in a family of dog-eaters hears and repeats the chanting of your glories, offers respects to you, remembers you, he's immediately greater than a Brahmin, and is therefore eligible to perform sacrifices. Therefore, what is to be said of one who has seen you directly?" Wow, what a beautiful verse. What a beautiful verse. Let me read again. "My dear Lord, even if a person born in a family of dog-eaters hears and repeats the chanting of your glories, offers respects to you, and remembers you, he's immediately greater than a Brahmin, and is therefore eligible to perform sacrifices. Therefore, what is to be said of one who has seen you directly?" Wow. So we have a little bit of a hierarchy here, so to speak. A little bit of a who's who. The Brahmin is the head of society. The Brahmin is very important. They maintain the spiritual integrity of society, and they live in such a way that they're not not absorbed in trying to provide for themselves so much. They depend on the charity of the Vaishyas and the Kshatriyas. And they live very simply, only what they need. They don't keep big bank accounts. Whatever they get, they use right away for Krishna's service. And in this way, they give good guidance to the rest of society by teaching from the Vedas. And there are many different types of Brahmins. A Vaishnava Brahmin is topmost, because such a Vaishnava Brahmin is teaching messages of devotional service. But there are other types of Brahmins, and they all have their role to play for guiding society in the direction toward the goal of life, which is release from the cycle of samsara, and will ultimately back to Godhead. So that person is very, very important. They're very dear to Krishna. But a person who's born, say here, dog eaters. Some parts of the world, they eat dogs. And actually, anyway, they eat dogs. He's born in such a family, but he's attracted to hearing the glories of the Lord, and offers respects to the Lord, and remembers the Lord. Such a person's actually greater than a Brahmin, because that person is a Vaishnava. They may not be trained in Brahminical service to the community, but if they're attracted to hearing and chanting about the Lord, and they're offering respects to the Lord, and they're remembering God, remembering Krishna, then that person is actually greater than the Brahmin, and he's eligible to perform sacrifices. He's a Vaishnava. He's transcendental. That's like we see with Jad Bharat. He performed his activities perfectly as a king. And he was Maharaj Bharata as a king. And then he renounced his kingdom and went to the forest to prepare for his transition, to concentrate fully on devotional activities. He became distracted, had to take birth in the animal species. So, although he was highly elevated, he hadn't quite achieved the devotional platform. But he was highly elevated. He had a lot of pious credits, But he slipped up, like King Nriga. He had a lot of pious critics, but he slipped up when his cow wandered from one herd to another, in one Brahmin's herd to another Brahmin's herd, so he got an impious reaction for that. So Maharaj Bharata also got an impious reaction because he deviated slightly and developed an attachment for a small deer. It was actually a material attachment. And then after he burned up the birth that came out of that sinful reaction to sinful activity, he took birth in a Brahmin's family. But he had full recollection of his journey in these different lifetimes. And so he wanted nothing to do with Brahminical. He wanted just to fix his mind on Krishna. He didn't want to have to take birth again. So a Vaishnav is higher than any of the Varnas or ashrams. The Varnas and ashrams, they are to organize society so that persons can make progress, because progress usually is a little slow. It takes some time. It may even take some lifetimes, the Varnashram system. But it is there, and it's a good fabric for society so that people can make at least gradual progress. But it is possible for someone to transcend that process of Varnashram Dharma by the mercy of the Lord, and the Lord's representative, pure representative. They can just skip right over the whole thing. So this is what Devahuti is describing here, that even a person born in a family of dog eaters hears, repeats, and chanting of your glories, offers respect to you, remembers you. He's greater than a Brahmin. He's not in Varnashram Dharma. It doesn't matter what family he was born in. And this is the principle that Prabhupada acted on in his preaching, is that he was approaching people all over the world, outside of India and Vedic culture, who were born in families of meat eaters, dog eaters, criminals. A lot of the disciples came from very unwholesome families in terms of Vedic standards, Brahminical standards. But by engaging everyone in hearing and chanting and remembering and glorifying Krishna, they immediately transcended the type of birth and the type of body that they had. So Prabhupada's quoting this verse. Such people are qualified to perform sacrifice. Qualified to worship the deities, qualified to chant the holy names of the Lord, qualified to approach the scriptures, and qualified to teach others. And as they're become more and more purified, more and more devotional by their devotional engagements, become qualified to go back home, back to Godhead. But here, this last sentence, therefore, what is to be said of one who has seen you directly? That is indicating the completely realized soul, the pure devotee, actually seen God. What is it? Brahma Sanhita, eyes anointed with the salve of love. So such a soul is very, very rare. Of course, Devahuti is sitting there with the Lord, and she's seeing him. So her ecstasy knows no bounds. Not only is she seeing him, but she has been accepted as his mother. So she has been serving the Lord like he was her child. In Padma Purāṇa, there is a statement that persons whose hearts are always attached to the devotional service of Lord Vishnu are immediately released from all reactions of sinful life. These reactions generally exist in 4 phases. Some of them are ready to produce results immediately. Some are in the form of seeds, some are unmanifested, and some are current. So there's 4 phases. Some are ready. They're ready to go right now. They haven't, but they're ready. At any moment, they're going to manifest. And some are more seed-like, kind of sitting there like seeds. And some are unmanifest. You can't even tell where they are, but they're there. And some are actually current right now, getting the reactions. All such reactions are immediately nullified by devotional service. When devotional service is present in one's heart, desires to perform sinful activities have no place there. Sinful life is due to ignorance, which means forgetfulness of one's constitutional position as an eternal servant of God. But when one is fully Krishna conscious, he realizes that he is God's eternal servant. So, these are material sinful reactions. They are part of the material energy. They have no place in the spiritual energy. So, when the soul is not engaged on the material platform, they're not subject to anything that's in the material energy. And the way that's done is by engaging in devotional service. When one remembers their true identity, the spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, and he realizes he's a servant of the Lord. And so it has nothing to do with the material energy, and that's where these sinful reactions are stored and taking place. So actually lifted out of the material energy. In this regard, Srila Jiva Goswami comments that bhakti may be divided into 2 divisions. Santata, devotional service that continue incessantly with faith and love, and kada chitki, devotional service that does not continue incessantly but is sometimes awakened. Incessant flowing devotional service, tantata, may also be divided into 2 categories. Service performed with slight attachment and spontaneous devotional service. That's interesting. So the devotional service is flowing incessantly. It's nonstop. It's uninterrupted. But it has 2 aspects. One is that it's performed with a slight attachment. And the other is it's spontaneous devotional service. Now, intermittent devotional service, kadachitki, may be divided in 3 categories. Okay, so this is sometimes performing devotional service and sometimes something else. So the first category of that type of devotional service, which comes in spurts and starts, is raga basa maya devotional service in which one is almost attached. So, when the devotional service is present, it may be like this, almost attached. And the other type is Ragabhasa Sunya Swaruputta. Devotional service in which there is no spontaneous love, but one likes the constitutional position of serving. Okay, so when this intermittent devotional service is present, it may be present in that way. They just like to serve. There's no love, really, and not spontaneous love, but just like the position of serving. And the other way this intermittent devotional service could be present is abhasya rupa, a slight glimpse of devotional service. That's kada chitki, intermittent, comes and it goes. Oh boy. As for atonement, if one has caught even a slight glimpse of devotional service, all needs to undergo prayaschita, or atonement, are suspended. If even a slight glimpse of devotional service, it's not necessary to undergo atonement. A slight glimpse. Therefore, atonement is certainly unnecessary when one has achieved spontaneous love, and above that, attachment with love, which are signs of increasing advancement in kada chitki. Even in the stage of abhas rupa bhakti, all the reactions of sinful life are uprooted and vanquished. Srila Jiva Goswami expresses the opinion that the word karchnyena means that even if one has a desire to commit sinful actions, the roots of that desire are vanquished merely by abhas rupa bhakti. So it's going to explain this abhas rupa bhakti. The example of Bhakshara, the sun, is most appropriate. The abhas feature of bhakti is compared to twilight, and the accumulation of one's sinful activities is compared to fog. Since fog does not spread throughout the sky, the sun need do no more than merely manifest its first rays, and the fog immediately disappears. Similarly, if one has even a slight relationship with devotional service, all the fog of his sinful life is immediately vanquished. Wow, that's great. Yeah. Was that the previous verse? We talked about the fog? Yeah, that was the previous verse. But here, Prabhupada's catching up in this purport to elaborate on that illustration about how powerful bhakti is, devotional service is, that like the sun coming up, dissipating the fog. And here Prabhupada elaborates on that there's a stage of bhakti which is referred to as abhas rupa bhakti, and is compared to twilight. So the sun isn't really up yet. It's twilight. The sun is there, but it's not, you really can't see the sun planet yet. But it's starting to get light. The rays of the sun can be felt. And it says the accumulation of one's sinful activities is compared to fog. So it's fog. We've all experienced that from time to time, that in the early morning there's a fog and the sun is starting to come up, but it hasn't fully risen yet. So it's kind of light, but not light, and it's very foggy. You really can't see things very clearly. But this fog does not spread throughout the sky. The fog is just hugging along the ground. It's not permeating everything. It's just hugging along the ground. So all the sun needs to do is manifest a few rays, first few rays, and then the fog disappears. So he says, even a slight relationship with devotional service, the fog of sinful life is vanquished. Because the fog doesn't reach to the sun. The fog has no jurisdiction in the spiritual atmosphere. A spiritual platform, the fog doesn't exist, only exists on the material platform. Oh, Krishna.